हमारा एक और we have another hospital where I look after their pulmonology. That is called Sama Hospital. It's one of the finest hospitals. But they are not this level. It's a second level hospital where we do chronic care, rehabilitation, pulmonary rehabilitation. They have an ICU, very good at it. So she has come from there that can we get some more patients here. I said, look, whenever you want to do a pulmonology, you need high intensive care. Also you need step down. And all those things, these are called hub and spoke model. So I was telling Saroj, just see how we work here. Now he is Akshit, he is Vishu. And they are come to NEET exams and they are postgraduates. अभी आगे जाके डॉक्टर्स पल्मोलॉजिस्ट बहुत अच्छे बच्चे इनको रोज पढ़ाया जाता है. So what I do here, I don't teach them classical room lectures. I teach them based on cases. अगर केस पढ़ लोगे तो आप अच्छा कर लोगे ना. Now, what's your name? Manju ji. If you classically see Akshit, Saroj, and Vishu, she has a typical frontal obesity, fat lady. She came with a respiratory failure. Respiratory failure means there are sudden drop in oxygenation and she started building up carbon dioxide and she became low. This is a very, very classical case. आपको पता है कोविड टाइम में एक हमने पेशेंट को हैंडल किया था जो अर्टिमिस से रेफर हो गया है. 120 PCO2 था. They were obese. When you have a high obesity, you see the lung becomes restricted. If you classically see her, this movement is sluggish because of the frontal obesity. You understand? So when you have huge fat around your stomach, either because of obesity or because of divarication of recti, so it pushes on your lungs. So what happens? The diaphragm goes into a discomfort, mechanical discomfort. Because every time in your breathing, because breathing is inspiration is an active process and expiration is required. So when you're breathing, so you have to breathe with the whole fat. So what happens? This causes a mechanical, chemical dysfunction at the level of brain. Because ultimately, what is breathing? Breathing is pH. Why I call the breathing is pH? Because carbon dioxide and oxygenation fluctuation, they create a pH change in your mind and which gives you a trigger to breathe. You understand? What is? That's why you see the most important pulmonary function test is arterial blood gas. If your blood gas is the right pH, pH is percent of hydrogen ion concentration, which is 7.35 to 45. हम लोग सारे 7.35 to 45 तभी अलर्ट हैं. जैसे ही वो 45 से ऊपर हो जाएगा विल बी स्लगिश और 7.35 से नीचे होगा तो स्लगिश होगी. The body works on pH. So the most important lung function test is not CT chest or echo or X-ray or PFT. It is your pH. It's your pH. But what happens when you have a high fat around your stomach? So you go into a kind of restrictive lung disease. There is nothing wrong with the lungs. There is no interstitial changes. But the lung is restricted because of the mechanical load on the lungs. You got it? That's why I keep telling you, load versus capacity. मान लीजिए, there's a camel. If you keep on putting the load on the camel, so a stage will come, what we call the last feather on the camel में. एक तिनका भी डालोगे, camel बैठ जाएगा. So what happens when you keep on gaining weight? So your lungs become little restricted, and a stage comes, the work of breathing increases. You understand why work of breathing increases? Once you have and remember, ultimately the most important thing of lungs is alveolar ventilation. You understand? We all breathe at the level of alveoli. Whatever the tidal volume you're taking, they get vested as a dead space or physiological dead space. Ultimately, आपकी alveoli में oxygen पहुंचना चाहिए. Once you have an obesity height, so lower portion of the lungs is called early. You must read a chapter called closing volume. You must read. It's called early closure of the airways. What happens? The FRC position keeps changing. What happens? So what happens? Your expiratory reserve volume increases, and you breathe. At a stage comes, आप tidal volume breathe करते ही FRC में आ गए. So that means there is a closure of the airways. You understand? So when you're breathing like this, and when you're obese, a stage comes, you're coming here and here and here, and ultimately you go to the closing volume. That means moment you breathe, there is a collapse of the airways. This is called early closure of lungs. So that's why you have to read a chapter called closing volume. So it works on the principle of closing volume. So this is a classical case of what you call obesity hypoventilation. Do you remember? When you are obese, you are hyperventilating. That means you are breathing small. So imagine, what is lung? It's minute ventilation. is a product of tidal volume to respiratory rate. आपकी respiratory rate कब कम होगा? जब आपकी tidal volume alveolar ventilation अच्छा होगा. You understand? When suppose you are taking at the level of alveoli 500 ml, तो आपको कितना चाहिए होगा? 12 चाहिए होगा because you need 5 to 6 liters. But अगर मैं छोटा सांस लूँ,
just 150 or
150. So how many times I breathe faster?
Yes.
So they breathe faster, and finally they into fatigue. They retain carbon dioxide. They land up in the ICU. You understand? So why they go into a respiratory failure? It is because of hypoventilation. Alveolar hypoventilation because of early closure of the lung volumes because of obesity.
Yes.
And if you see the profile, these are called syndrome X or syndrome Z भी कहते हैं. Usually they are obese, they are short neck, they are very sluggish, and usually they have metabolic complications, thyroid, uncontrolled diabetes. This is a big problem, and these are the people they go for bariatric surgery where we can refer her. Eventually we can refer to your bariatric surgery. You know, sometimes, and what they need is alveolar ventilation. And how can you do alveolar ventilation? They need a very good NIV. थोड़ा सा NIV देने से नहीं चलेगा. That's why I say you have to spend some time to titrate her for the right non-invasive ventilation. So she needs a good EPAP, because EPAP doge then his expiratory reserve volume will improve and FRC position will change. So she needs a good ERV, EPAP and a good IPAP. And how can you do it? They need to be titrated through a sleep study, because usually these people are significantly apneic and hypoxic in the night, because whenever you go into the REM sleep में क्या होता है? Muscles become totally relaxed. They go to severe ventilation. And they go to atonia, and they go to severe cardiorespiratory dysfunctions. So you see, she has come in intubation. We have taken her out. Nobody was saying नहीं निकल नहीं पाएगा. मैंने कहा निकालो इनको, because ultimately obesity has. And you know, moment you put them in a ET tube, they improve. Because उनको space मिल जाता है ना सांस लेने का.
Yes, sir.
So now what you have to do is that we have to do a sleep study, number one. Secondly, we have to do sleep study titration for the right NIV. And number three, lifestyle modification for weight loss, and eventually referring her to Saroj for a bariatric surgery.
Yes, sir.
You understand? So Saroj, now you understand. The science works interdisciplinary. आपका भी जरूरत है, हमारा भी जरूरत है, हर एक का जरूरत है. ये टीम है. ये मल्टीडिसिप्लिनरी अप्रोच होता है साइंस, तभी हम काम आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं. आपका आज की जो जमाना है, ऐसा नहीं है कि हमने कार्ड बांट दिया और काम आ गया. इट्स एन ऑर्गेनिक मार्केट. आप एक अच्छा काम करोगे, उसकी नेक्स्ट लेवल भी अच्छा काम होना चाहिए. यू अंडरस्टैंड? यू सी हियर हाउ दिस पीपल आर वर्किंग. इट्स अ क्लीन ICU. एवरीबॉडी इज पुटिंग एफर्ट. नॉलेज डिसमिनेशन हो रहा है, तभी पेशेंट ठीक हो रहा है. एक पेशेंट ठीक होगा तो 10 आएगा. Are you agree? So and now how what I am doing here, I am teaching these people. अब देखो यहाँ दो हैं, हमारे दो और बच्चे हैं, वो ड्यूटी ऑफ पे हैं. उनको कैसे हम क्या करते हैं, ये जो मैंने बेड साइड टीचिंग की YouTube में अपलोड हो जाएगा और हमारे ग्रुप में शेयर हो जाएगा. तो ज्ञान इस तरीके से हम बात करें. इज इट गुड? ठीक है. तो सरोज इज अ वेरी डियर फ्रेंड ऑफ माइन. वो सामा हॉस्पिटल को देखती है. शी इज अ वंडरफुल पर्सन.